In this video, we're going to review the concepts of perimeter and area. First of all, recall that the perimeter of a figure is really just the distance around the outside. Now for a circle, we have a special name for the perimeter of our circle. And the special name that we give to the perimeter of a circle is the circumference. Area, on the other hand, is really the amount of space inside a figure. Remember that area is always measured in square units. And can be found using a formula. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of these figures and find both the perimeter and the area. The first one, our square, to find its perimeter, we're simply going to take and add the lengths of all four of its sides. So the perimeter of this square with sides of length 3 feet is going to be 12 feet, or the 3 plus the 3 plus the 3 plus the 3, or the 3 4 times. The area of this square, you probably remember this area formula from your middle school or your elementary school years, but if you didn't remember, it is on the reference sheet that's provided to you on the Regents exam, and a copy of this reference sheet is right here. And notice the formulas, the 3 area formulas that are given to you here for the triangle, the parallelogram, and the circle. Now every rectangle is a parallelogram, so we can find the area, or sorry, every square is a parallelogram, so we can find the area of any square simply by doing base times height. So area here is base times height. The only thing you have to be careful of when using this formula is that your base and height always have to form a right angle. If your base and height don't form a right angle, you don't have the base and height. So the area here is going to be 3 times 3, or 9 square feet. For the next one, to find the rectangle, to find the perimeter, again, we're simply going to take and add the length of each side. So 3 plus 6 plus 3 plus 6 gives us a perimeter of 18 inches. And again, to find the area, we're going to use the formula area equals base times height. And when we multiply the 6 times 3, we end up with 18. But remember that area is always measured in square units. So 18 square inches. To find the perimeter of this next one, the parallelogram, again, we're simply going to take and add the length of each side. So this one becomes a little bit more tricky because the left and the right sides of our parallelogram have dimensions that are given kind of in mixed units, feet and inches. But how I'm going to find the perimeter isn't going to change. I'm still going to go ahead and add the lengths of all the sides together. So when I take and add the lengths of all the feet, I end up with 16 feet. When I add the inches together, 14 inches. However, that 14 inches is really 1 foot, 2 inches. So for the perimeter, I end up with 17 feet, 2 inches. That one was a little bit tricky. To find the area, again, I'm going to use the formula area equals base times height. So my base and height always have to form a right angle here. My base is 5 feet, my height is 3 feet, and even though they're not telling me that there's a right angle in that picture, they do tell me that B is the base and H is the height here. So 5 times 3, and again measured in square units, 15 square feet. Moving along, the next one is our triangle. And again, to find the perimeter, we're simply going to take and add the lengths of all three of its sides. So 8 plus 11.5 plus 4. So the perimeter would be 23.5 yards. And then to find the area, you may recall that the formula for the area of a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. But if you forgot that, you could always look that up on your reference sheet. So that formula is provided for you. But again, be careful when substituting numbers into this formula. Your base and your height have to form a right angle. So here's the right angle in our picture. The base of our triangle is 4 yards. The height is 5 yards. Making the area here 10 square yards. Now, as far as the trapezoid goes, for the perimeter, he's just like any other polygon. You're going to take and add the lengths of all of his sides together. So the 7 plus the 6.5 plus the 14 plus the 7.5. I'm coming up with 35 inches. And for his area, if we go and look at the reference sheet, we notice that the formula for the area of a trapezoid, not on the reference sheet. So you have a couple different choices here. You can break him up into some triangles and some rectangles and add the areas together. That sometimes works. But notice that every single one of the area formulas for all of these parallelograms is either base times height or some variation of base times height. The triangle's a half base times height because the triangle's actually half of a rectangle. In the trapezoid here, we've got these two different bases going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the bases together and divide by 2, or in other words, take an average of those two bases. Or in other words, take half the sum of those two bases and multiply times the height. So again, this part of the formula where you're taking a half of base 1 plus base 2, you're really just averaging those two bases together since the trapezoid has two different base lengths and then multiplying times the height. But that is a formula that you need to know. So when we substitute in here, we've got a half of 7 plus 14 times the height, which is 6. Or 60 square inches. Remember that for the circle, we really don't talk about perimeter of a circle. The formula for circumference of a circle is on your formula sheet. So you can either use pi times diameter or 2 times pi times r. They're both variations of the same formula. Since in this case we're given the diameter of the circle, I'm going to use circumference equals pi times diameter. And since it doesn't ask us what to round to, we're going to leave our answer in terms of pi. So that's important to know. So unless they specify or give us something to round to, our answer is always going to be left for the circle in terms of pi. And this would be 10 pi centimeters. Formula for the area of a circle. Again, if you're not familiar with this, if you don't remember from middle school, then go hop on the formula sheet and take a look. There's your formula for the area of a circle, pi times r squared. So when we substitute into the formula, we end up with pi times 5 squared. 5 squared is 25. And again, unless they specify otherwise, we're always going to leave this answer in terms of pi. So this would be 25 pi square centimeters. So there's your basic or your recap of basic area, perimeter, circumference from your middle and elementary school years. As always, I do want you to take a few minutes. Think about, focus on what are the key ideas and the important takeaways that you need to bring away with you from this video, and then see if you can apply your knowledge in order to solve the questions on page 2.